Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a February 26th. Oh my God, we're almost 2 full months into the year. February 26th edition of the MSP Initiative podcast. Literally 2 more days left in this month, and we are in March. Did you tracking that, guys? You following the calendar? Some housekeeping I always get done at the beginning of these podcasts, and then we'll get into the good stuff. This will be an interesting one today. So, we are now definitely into the thick of things. I call this the first. I always call the September end of September, October, beginning of November. I call that the gauntlet. This is gauntlet light. This is where all the events really start to get super busy in the IT managed services channel sandbox, I like to call it. So things are fully in swing now. The calendar is starting to get really busy. Call it Gauntlet Light for my terminology. Hopefully, I didn't steal somebody's copyright somewhere. Um, we, as MSP Initiative, are working in conjunction with a few events coming up here that you'll probably have recognized in one shape or form. So here we go. We are working with Zero Trust World. Google it. It is an event run by the team at Threat Locker in Orlando. Next week, we're doing a block party in conjunction with the conference. So we're really excited about that. So I know Orlando. I know it's like every other event in our industry for some reason. Maybe everybody just likes Disney World and Universal theme parks. I don't know, but we are there, going there again. So we'll see you next week in Orlando. You'll find all this information at mspinitiative.com. After Orlando, fast forward to Enable Empower. Empower. So Empower. Enable, like the company that you buy your stuff from. So Enable Empower is in Fort Lauderdale. That is taking place April 13th through the 15th. Okay. So Enable rotates their conferences between US and Europe every other year. The last one was in Dallas 2 years ago. We're coming now to Fort Lauderdale, and we're doing another block party, this time on a boat party. Um, so that is coming up April 13th to the 15th. After that, we will be working with the fine people at Kaseya for the Kaseya Connect Global. That one is in Vegas. I'm sure it's been running for a long time. So the dates on that are April 27th through the 30th, a couple weeks after Enable, right? So we'll be running a block party on site at the MGM Casino and Hotel. So again, Zero Trust World Threat Locker next week, beginning of March. Enable Empower mid-April. Kaseya Connect Vegas end of April. All right, you with me so far? Everybody following? Chris Johnson's writing them all down. I know he can't wait to do all these parties with us. And then we bump into the Roost Flow Conference. So if you're not familiar with Roost, and if you're not familiar with the conference called Flow, check it out. That is going to be June 17th through 19th in Nashville. You're the only 10 I see. I know, so cheesy, but you hear it all the time down there. So you can look up the Roost Flow Conference. We were doing another block party in conjunction with the Roost Flow Conference. And yeah, it's going to be good. Last year we did one with them in Tampa, and they've moved their conference to Nashville. New sites, new scenes, new party. And then lastly, takes us about mid-year, and then we'll pause, is the Kaseya Connect Europe event, which is right before then is going to be June 16th to the 18th in Prague. I think Chris Johnson wants to go to Prague. I know my new guest,
Do.
Matt, may want to go to Prague. I will tell you one thing about Prague, because we've done an event in Prague 2 years ago. The Pilsner beer was invented in Prague. You don't know this, but it's a Jeopardy knowledge. And a pint of Pilsner is like less than $1. So I
Amen.
guess they I guess they enjoy their alcohol in Prague. They claim they have more alcohol consumption per capita than anywhere in the world. I challenge that. I challenge it. I don't know if it's right. I need to do some fact checking, but they very proud of this, fact when we're there. So there's all the housekeeping. Hopefully tracked all of that. MSPinitiative.com will have all of the information, registration, all the stuff that you care about. By the way, totally free for MSPs to join us, right? Like this party is put on for the community for you. Next week, I'll be actually down with the crew for Zero Trust World. If you just happen to be in the area, I know that an exchange event's happening before Zero Trust World on the other side of town in Orlando, or you're just from the area and you're an MSP, register, join us. It's totally for the community, right? So looking forward to that next week and getting out of it's not horribly cold like it was like 10 degrees the last time we had a podcast. It's 44 today in Philadelphia, but I digress. Thank you very much. That's all the housekeeping. Here we go. Today, we bring back Chris Johnson. Chris just loves us so much. We'll have him on all our podcasts if he has the time. So welcome back, Chris Johnson from the Global Technology Industry Association, GTIA. Yep, awesome. And then our new first time ever, so welcome to the show, Matt from tacticsmarketing.com, which is marketing for MSPs. How you doing, Matt?
Good, thanks.
Are
Thanks for having me.
you legitimately in an airplane hangar, or is that just like an electronic background?
All right, yeah, no, so that's the story, right? So, yeah, right now, my wife's gone. She's in Japan with some friends, and we've got the snowboard house. So I went up to the office, and there's a bunch of kids just sleeping out, getting ready for snowboarding. I was like, I think I'm gonna take this to the head.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well,
so
that's
yeah,
cool.
apologize to you guys.
That- it's a really cool backdrop. I'll give you that for a
Thanks.
web session. Um, so since it's your first time on the show, Matt, obviously we know you like snowboarding, which is great. How about you give us a little bit of background on who you are and how you got to where you are today? I always do like a little walk down history lane so that people have some context about how you know what you know and why they should listen. Then we'll get into other topics.
Well, I'm not saying you should listen, but I'll tell you my story. So, yeah, I've always been, into business as a tween. My brother and I started a skateboard, snowboard, surfboard, wax, and accessory business. Um, without going into too many stories, it went well. And it went well because we listened to the clients. Basically, we were really focused on selling surf wax and surf apparel, and we were in a shop, kind of pitching our products and stuff. And a kid walked up and he's like, "Is this for skateboards?" And we're like, "No, but it can be. It's actually completely from what we had to design, a completely different product." But we're like, "Let us go to the drawing board. Is this something that you want?" And they're like, "Yeah." And the shop owner said, "Yeah." And no one had actually done it. So we went to the drawing board, we made it, we came back, and it went really well. We ended up getting distribution in all 50 states and up into Canada. And, it funded a lot of childhood shenanigans in my teenage years.
It sounds like a Shark
Um,
Tank story, but keep
uh,
going.
a little bit of a Shark Tank story. The best part was uh, I was sitting there with my girlfriend and now wife, and we were contemplating. We had done this tour where we like went to all the skate parks on the West Coast and all the way up to Alaska and different places. And I got this huge order, and I can't remember what we had going on, but we were like, at this point, my brother had left the company and gone to college, and I was just like, "Nah, we're closed. We're out of business." Shut the thing down and walked away, and we just
Hmm.
went on to the next adventure, which ended up being IT. Actually, took some time off, and then wound up doing IT. But there's an important moral there, which is you know your exit when you've reached a point where it's cramping your lifestyle and it's time to
Hmm.
exit. Don't be afraid to exit,
That
right?
that's a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty ongoing topic in MSP land. We'll talk about that a little bit. Keep going. So you decided to flip the script and do technology instead of skateboard and
Yeah,
snowboarding apparel.
I'm giving the abbreviated version,
Yeah.
but I want to MSP in doing medical networks in Oregon at this point. And I like to say it like this: we were not the best MSP, but we were really good at marketing and sales, right? And 30% growth, 30% profit all day long, and scalable, right? So, like I said, service department. I'm not making any claims that we were the best MSP, but we were good at marketing and sales. But same thing. I had an exit plan. I said I want to, a house on a runway with my airplanes on at it, and I want a house in Mexico, and then I want out, you know. So as soon as we hit that point,
Oh no, we lost him. I think he was going good on the audio, and then we lost him. Let's see if he reconnects. See that, Chris? It's only oh, there he is.
Technology.
Yeah. All right, Matt. We last we heard you. Yeah, you're on mute. Last we heard you, you wanted a house in Mexico, and then we lost you. Go ahead.
sorry about that.
No worries.
Internet's doing its thing today. Um, I want a house in Mexico and a house in Oregon on the runway, and to take some time off with the kids who are, you know, now getting up into their double-digit ages. So yeah, the time was prime. Sold the business to a IT company that does medical out of California, and this is sorry if the story is getting too long, but
No, no, this is good. This is
we
all
were
really good
living,
background.
you know, at the time, I'm living the full MSP life. Like literally your bathroom breaks are scheduled and we're living in this like smart house where electric cars and everything's, you know, programmed and just digital world. And we were like, no. So we bought a like log cabin in the woods in a town with 200 people. We had no cell phones. We had no internet. We got a record player, the little store had like DVDs you could check out. And we just went offline for a few years. And we hiked and we biked and we skied. Um, and we just really enjoyed that. We also got a house in Florida because I don't like the cold all the time, right? So, you know, and and we just really, you know, I talk to the kids now, they're older, and they say, man, those are some of the best years of our life. We just kind of unplugged, uh, spent spent the days outside and just really enjoyed them. Um,
Hmm.
anyway, so kids get older, you start wondering, you know, you need a purpose and wonder what you're doing. I have a number of other side shenanigans, of course, but one of the things I constantly come back to, one of the things that's important to all of my other businesses is the marketing and component of that. So since I had to learn that anyway for my own MSP and for my other businesses, it's something that's naturally easy for me to help other people with. Most of my friends tend to be in the channel. So I started helping out friends. At first I started doing like just helping with general MSP consulting. But I honestly like, you know, I can tell you what to do with your numbers and help with that stuff from running an MSP, but there's people out there that are better suited to the ops side of things. So I try to stay in my lane with marketing. But yeah, if you're like having trouble growing or you're looking to figure out marketing, super fun. That's kind of where I live now. So we made an agency. We made it completely different because when I had my MSP, marketing drove me nuts. It was always too expensive. I never knew what was going on. I didn't like the people, you know. We ended up bringing it all in house and doing it ourselves towards the end. But we wasted a lot of money and learned a lot of hard lessons. So when I built our agency, we built it completely different. We're completely flexible. Everything's transparent. Don't want it to be a sales pitch, but just, you know, having that experience of basically building the agency I wanted and that I do use for my other businesses. Um, it's nice. It's nice to build something for yourself and then let others enjoy it. And we're having a lot of fun. And we've got MSPs, you know, that are just like just getting started. We've got MSPs with 20, 50 million, you know, who are like, we need another jet. And it, you know, it works anywhere in between. We all
If you're
need
an
money.
if you're an MSP that has a jet, we're doing it wrong. Something's not right. We got to figure that out. So let me go backwards. Number one, you got a bunch of houses. Something went right. This is great. And by the way, love the entrepreneurial story. I subscribe 1000% to that. I like to do things and ideas turn into businesses. They may not be great businesses. They may, you know, some people end up being like, you know, it didn't work out at all. Let's move
Oh
on.
yeah. That's the
But
best.
yeah, but you seem to have this clock in your head where you're like, hey, I'm going to work to a point and then I'm moving on to do something else, which I think that theme is awesome, but generally missing from our, you know, sandbox here, MSP land, right? Like a lot of these business owners have been doing this for 20, 25, 30 years. And the only reason they're even talking about checking out is because they're burned out and they're getting to the point where they just don't, they want to retire, right? How long ago did you
Yeah.
sell the MSP to the other MSP in California?
I was just thinking, I think 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, so right before, like right before we got into the post-COVID era, which is, like late 2010s, right? So if you're working with a lot of MSPs now, which by the way, love the fact that you are in the trench, right? Because there's a lot of marketing people from outside of the sandbox that say, hey, I work with plumbers and lawyers and doctors and I put billboards up and do radio ads. And I'm not sure any of that works for MSP, but we'll take your opinion on it in a second. Love the fact that you came out of the industry and now are working with other people in the industry. It just goes to show you that we're not going anywhere. I think largely overhyped the IT service company is going to be dead or is it going to go extinct before 2030. I'm like, I don't know if I've heard this story so many times. I don't think I believe it. But I'm going to throw one at you that I threw Chris Johnson. I'm going to build off of last week's podcast with Chris since we have him on here. Man, Matt, I'm floating through the feeds like everybody else, man, right? And I'm usually posting about like the TV shows that I'm watching and like, my favorite Eagles clip of the day, whatever. But I can't tell you, I've lost count of how many times in the feed I get, hey, you can just erase your marketing department, go to something.ai and just put in your URL and it'll tell you everything you need to know. And it's like a $10,000 a month marketing agency for 50 bucks. Or let me go to like the adjacent part. I was talking with Chris last week about Claudebot. And I can't tell you how many posts I've seen now on Reddit where somebody installed Claudebot and like made it do all its marketing. And I'm like, I think this is all junk posts. I don't believe it. I think this is crap. But that's just me. I believe it when I see it, guy. So what do you think about this whole hey the AI revolution when it comes to marketing? Like you don't even need what Matt does.
Yeah, I get those too. And I think that I don't think we should throw it out, right? I think there's some there. And I think also a marketing agency that's growing from a tech background, we're a lot more apt to embrace the technologies. So when I go to other like marketing events, it's funny because how much more tech forward our agency is. I don't think of it that way, but I get the benefit of dealing with tech people all day, and I get the benefit of saying, hey, let's leverage technology, right? Let's not fight against it. So yes, AI is, it's a great tool, but like I say, for anything, you might say, hey, AI, I want you to, fix this network. And it's going to say, okay, you've got a problem with this TCP/IP stack, and you've got a problem with this router, whatever. And you're like, great, now do it. And that's where it falls off the cliff, right? It's got some good conceptually statistic ideas on what it should be, but it can't actually do anything. Will it reach that point? I don't know. Probably, but it's not there today. So should you, bounce your ideas off AI? Should you embrace AI in your bigger life picture? Sure. Why not? Is it going to actually move the needle for you today? Unfortunately, probably not by itself. It's going to fill you with all these paperwork or this hypotheticals or inconsistent things that look like it's doing stuff and spend your credits, but not actually amount to a result. But I don't think you should ignore it. I don't think you should ignore it. But I don't have an AI model yet that can produce an outcome for me. But we're keeping our eye on that. I love like vibe coding stuff like that. I mean, there's definitely some there, but unfortunately, I haven't seen it move the needle for anyone yet.
I mean, listen, this is why I asked the question, right? Because if I'm getting the marketing, then everybody else is getting it, right? And
Yeah,
like, what do I believe? I'm more skeptical now than I was a while, like even a couple years ago, because the amount of stuff that people promise you. I'm going to an old one here, right? But I'm sure you remember this in your MSP. Matt, do you remember when somebody in some company sold you the idea of a single pane of glass? Did you ever get there? Did the single pane ever show up?
yeah. Uh,
Yeah. No, it never showed up. I bought the idea, I paid for it, I just never got it, right? And so after that, and realizing how much money I spent over like a decade of never getting it, like at what point do I just say, you know what, this isn't gonna ever happen? Like enough's enough. So I think I'm a little bit more like show it to me, right? Like let's make sure it's not vaporware, kind of thing, guy. I don't know if that's the status quo. What do you think, Chris? what, with people who buy new stuff. I even hate to ask the question because as many trade shows as I've been to and as many credit card swipes as I've seen, I don't think
Sure.
people check anything. But that's just me. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, what came to mind when Matt was talking was thinking about the mult book exposure. So you've got this massive network of thousands, allegedly, of thousands of bots talking to each other, and they came up with their own religion and all this other stuff. And it got exposed for the fact that it was really more like a few hundred people that had stood up a bunch of agents and then were essentially providing instruction to create this illusion of human like intelligence being played out with a bunch of bots. Now, to what Matt said, are we going to get to the point where they can host their own conversations and make their own life decisions as far as what they want to do for the humans? Probably not. I mean, I believe that there is a lot that AI can do, a lot that AI is doing, but there's one weird thing that I think that's happening right now that's going to put a damper on a lot of this. How much money are you going to put into it before you run out of money
Ah,
or
okay.
power?
All right. Hold on. Let's go back to this, Matt. I'm sure because you've been in the sandbox before you stood up this marketing for MSPs thing. I've heard it all. At least I think I have, right? 60 grand, 100 grand, 20 grand, 200 grand over whatever period of time, right? Where they've gone with some guy, some company who says that they're going to be able to generate this many appointments, this many leads, and they spend all this money, and a year or 6 months or 14 months goes by, and nothing. They could have gone and bought a house next to you in Mexico. So, like, what do like, there's a lot of people with that experience. What do you tell those people?
So, that's tough. And there's an old Dilbert comic strip where the engineer is trying to find a new job, and he goes, "What about sales?" And they're like, "No, you can't do sales. You're way too smart." And then he says, "Well, what about marketing?" And they say, "No, that's just a bunch of drinking and guessing." So I always think about that. Like, definitely marketing works. Every aspect of marketing and everything you don't think, whether it's the billboard or the radio ad or whatever it is, it all works, but it's the right person, the right time, the right audience, the right industry. It wouldn't be there if it didn't work. But it's crafting that plan and having a strategy, and you as the MSP being like mentally able to take on that task. So yeah, most of you fail or will fail, and I failed. And the real difference is, are you going to learn it or partner with an agency and stick it through? Or is that a part of your business where you're actually just going to sell it without that being built out? And I'll just to flip the script a little bit on that. Like, some people are like amazing automation operation masters, right? Or something like that in their MSP. Like, that was one for me where I was like looking at selling my MSP, and I was like, I could spend another 10 years mastering this craft. But for my sale, like, what was more important was the growth numbers and the top line revenue. And so I let some other things slide that I'm not a master of, that I definitely know people out there are. So I think you have to say, I'm willing to, take this on. I want to see the growth, and I want to go through the hard times personally, and as a business to learn this. And then, you got to wipe the slate from all those mistakes you made and take a little ownership. I mean, there's bad agencies out there, there's bad things out there, but there's also like, you know, probably was a little bit of you at the same time, and then reinvest. And I think, sorry, I'll stop preaching here, but my last thing is like, MSPs forget the lifetime value of their client is huge, or should be huge. Take a small client, take a $2,500 a month MRR, right? So what is that? That's 30 grand a year, and you're going to have that client for 5 years, right? Am I doing my math right? Is that 150 grand? You know, if you were selling a cup of coffee and I said it's going to cost you 10 cents to sell this cup of coffee, 10 cents in marketing to sell a cup of coffee, you'd be like, yeah, fair. That's a fair bet. I'm going to sell the cup for, $2 or whatever. Well, guess what? That could be 15 grand. That could be 7 grand, on that client. So, and this is where people get bogged down. I want 10 leads a month. Well, do you want 10 leads a month, or do you want one client, that's gonna, have a
Well,
life value?
I think to that point, everybody gets bogged down in um let me go backwards and say it this way. If I put all my chips on black at the table and I don't win, I lost it all, right? Like I've never seen an MSP pay for a Super Bowl commercial. I mean, have you? I don't know. I've never seen it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed it. But if I put $8 million into a 30-second commercial at the Super Bowl and it doesn't work for me, it's done. I probably bankrupted the damn thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the idea, or at least my idea, is what can I do to hedge my bet, but not go for broke and spend it all in one thing, right? And like that way, if it works, awesome. But if it didn't work, I didn't completely derail the whole thing.
Yeah. And to that, I would say probably, limit yourself just so you don't go for broke, right? Don't go for, unless you're playing with somebody else's money, don't do anything risky. Stay within reasonable industry standards as far as your P&L and your marketing spend. And what that means is, like, ConnectWise has a nice publication out there. They've done studies like at a best practice of 1.8% of top line revenue. That's like a $20 million MSP, right? So there's been 400 grand. At a small level, if you're the, $500,000, it could be as high as 20%. The average is like 11.6%. Okay. So let's just take average. So throw out the six, say 11%, and just say, all right, I'm going to build my MSP from today forward so that I can put 11 cents of every dollar away from the marketing perspective. And then if I spend and I lose, I'm not cutting in, I'm not having to fire tax, I'm not losing money that I didn't already budget in.
All right, but let's take your 11%. If I'm $1 million MSP, not the smallest, not the biggest, 11%'s, 100 grand, 100, 110 grand, right? So like that's six figures. It's not small.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Uh, and I guess the question is, it's only 11% if you're trying to, grow aggressively and market. And definitely don't spin that until you've hit the low hanging fruit. You should, have your referrals completely tapped out. Your systems should be in place. You should be getting gross profit of 55%, on your stuff. You can't be shoestringing it, The 11% can't come at a cost of you losing your business. But when your business is mature enough that that doesn't even hurt you at all, you're ready to go and kind of out of
So you referenced ConnectWise. ConnectWise bought a company called Service Leadership. I know Paul Dipple was the face of that forever. I think he's stepped down. Hope he's retired somewhere. If in Mexico, maybe near your place. But I remember Paul Dipple talking many, many times, and I believe it's still the case today. Chris, I don't know if you saw the most recent report. I know ConnectWise still puts it out every year. They're like, hey, 20% of MSPs aren't even break even. They're negative. They're in the red.
Right.
If that's still the case, this 11% can't be, no?
I
Yeah, but I
wouldn't
think there's
recommend.
a different. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, if you're not breaking even, I wouldn't be marketing. Go
Well,
ahead.
I think there's a question to ask that I think MSPs are constantly not asking this one question, and that is, what do I have as an expected outcome from the marketing? So yeah, 11% or 2%, whatever you're investing in it to get the desired outcome. But so many, going back to what you said before about like the billboard and different ways that you can approach that all work. But what kind of client prospects are you hoping for? Because I think it doesn't really necessarily matter how much money you're willing to put at it. If the desired outcome isn't being dealt with in a way that you're doing meaningful marketing, you're just throwing money away anyways. And we hear that all the time with the, oh, I tried this agency and they were terrible. And it's like you listen to their story and you're like, yeah, they had a minimum commitment of 6 months. You made it 45 days.
Mm.
So how long can you wait too, right? Like, so I want to throw X percentage at it, but you may only be able to do that for so long. Are you aware of the stakes that you're participating in?
Yeah. And to the, to the Paul Dipple, there was back there in the guru stage, there was one guru who said, cut your marketing budget to zero, or just, give it to me and I'll go out and spend it, waste it, because you're not doing anything with it. And uh, at the time, like, I had my MSP, we were in peer groups, and I was the only one in our peer team that had a marketing spend. And I got totally just, the first day in the peer group, they were just like, cut that, you don't know what you're doing. And I kept it. Of course, obviously, you know how the story ends, but it's not bad advice. And to Chris's point, like, this is how long can you go, and what's your expectations? If you can't go forever, and if you don't understand how to productize your services, and you don't understand target market, and you're not willing to learn or work with somebody that can teach you those things, yeah, you're probably better off not marketing and just putting that towards the house in Mexico right now. And just realizing that part of your MSP that's not going to, you're going to sell your MSP to another company that does better marketing than you. Maybe focus on your ops or something. But if you're going to sell because of your growth, you need to learn some things, or figure some of this stuff out.
Okay. I did a podcast with Chris Johnson in Denver last year. We're running a little event right before PAX 8 Beyond. I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but I
I
remember
do.
it. And a line from that podcast from Chris was, because Chris is a security guy. That's how his brain's wired. He's like, you should go through any of your online channels, your website, your social media, and you should remove any client names, or else they'll use that, the bad guys will use that as a way to socially engineer, or they'll target you, your clients. And I'm like, man, from a marketing standpoint, I'm using those testimonials to like stand me up, right? I want people to be like, oh yeah, I know that guy. And if he's using these guys, then I should take a look. But like, you lose that effect if, the Chris advice is, hey man, from a security standpoint, this is bad news. So maybe Chris, I hope I didn't distort that, but why don't you maybe like restate what you were trying to get across, and then we'll see if Matt agrees with you.
So I will say that it's not so much a misstatement, but it's maybe missing a little bit of the context. So I'm not proposing that you don't ever like, comment, share with others, and so especially in social media, because I think with social media, unless it's happening in a constant, or if I went to your profile, I can see lots of that over and over and over again. Sure, that might get into a gray area of maybe you're putting some things into the risk bucket that you don't need to. My emphasis was more of on things like your website. So like on a website, listing all your vendors in a carousel tells a threat actor very clearly, well, I don't need to do any homework. I have a list that you've given me. I just have to figure out which one of these has a recent exploit that I could navigate towards. So, client testimonials on your website, I would just argue that it's probably safer to use the testimonial, but don't necessarily use their name, so that you're not pointing directly to whoever that is. Because that is how they're building for social engineering. They are building using, once they find one place that spiders out, they have a pretty good footprint of understanding how to go about attacking you. So that's the security view at any rate.
Okay. Matt's he ran an MSP, so this is important. He was probably at the beginning of the security boom, right? Like when he sold, so he's not, totally like blind to it. But
Good.
fast forward to today, Matt, what's your opinion on that?
I've come so far over to the dark side. I'm going to go to Chris and say, I'm putting all of my clients up with them holding their IDs and their social security numbers and everything, because it's going to help us sell. And that's a tech problem. Screw you. Like, look at my sales growth. So that's the marketing answer, right? We've got to build trust, and at a human level, and that trust comes with names, and it comes with all these things that are legitimately security risk. So Chris isn't wrong. It's a balance. There's and it's a different thing for every organization, and kind of depending on what what they're willing to give to earn that trust, but also maintain security. So that's a pretty regular conversation we have with clients. We've got everybody from paranoid that, their website just says we sell something to some people sometimes to, you're
Perfect.
more traditional. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you're not
Yeah.
gonna, that's a hard sell on that site, hard conversion, but if that's where they're at with their comfort level of security, and then, to more traditional, but
if at the end of the day, really, in the context of this, when I made that statement, how many people in that room had ever even thought about those being threat vectors that can be targeted? So should you
That
pull
was
them
it.
all out? Right. Should you pull them all out? In my humble opinion, from a security standpoint, yes. But to Matt's point, there's a serious balancing act here. And it goes back to the first part of it when you start talking about how much money are you putting into marketing and what are your desired outcomes. If you're just starting out and you have no trust, to Matt's point, it doesn't matter that the threat landscape is suddenly multiplied because of what I've put in there. I don't have anything yet. So at some point, the scales will tip differently where the level of exposure doesn't outweigh the value in the marketing anymore. That's that balancing act, right? So like if you've got nothing to lose, go all in. When you get to the point where it's like, man, having one client that's 20% of my business getting popped because of all of the stuff that I was sharing, now we have a different problem on our hands. And I think even the other piece of this too is if you understand what your threat surface looks like, you get to make the decision around evaluating your own risk. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. And I think MSPs are dealing with this every day. Like, what tools do they have in place that would potentially protect at some level that would raise the risk level that I'm willing to take with Matt helping me with my marketing versus I don't have the right security in place, and so anything I add from an exposure standpoint is, well, I still have no doors locked, so they're going to get in.
Yeah, I know we're definitely extremes there, right? I'm with you.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. I try and balance this conversation with the last comment that I made about, hey, well, if 20% of the market isn't even profitable, that like this conversation's like, I just need to do anything I can, rub two sticks of wood together to make anything work, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's, once you get past that grouping, that 20% where they're literally just not even paying their bills at the end of the year, and you get into the how do I grow, right? Because, Matt, sounds like you were in the peer group land, sounds like how a lot of that probably fast forward to today has been going with the PE, VC, money flooding into the market, the rolling up of these MSPs, which I think a lot of that happens primarily from peer groups, to be honest. They're like, oh, I know this guy, and this guy in the peer group. Let's see if we can roll it together. And like, that's a warm conversation. But that being said, when you're working with your MSPs today's, Matt, I'm sure some of them are, you've sold. I'm sure you talk about that in your story. I'm sure some of them are being, marketed to by the bigger guys that are gobbling people up. How much does your marketing, positioning, like how much of that are you hearing as a concern about, hey, I'm looking to sell in the next year, two, three. How much do I want to spend on this if I'm going to sell? Or how much do that they care about their, evaluation by an outside buyer of what their marketing says about their business?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question, but I think the shortest answer I can give there is, you know, you gotta it's a case by case basis, and you gotta figure out where they're at and what they're trying to achieve. Marketing done right can be an enterprise value add, right? And done really well, I mean, that's how you can, I mean, even get into an X factor that you haven't even hit because you're trending at such a level when you sell. So that's obviously like, that's where how I did it. And that's where, when you get those clients, you're like, great, we know exactly what to do. Um, for a lot of people, it's a make buy decision. It's going to be like, hey, do I have enough time to make this actually happen before I'm going to sell, and or do I want to sell to somebody that's stronger in this already? Or, a variety of all those other questions. So, I'm not here to sell marketing for everyone. It's definitely it's definitely a challenge that you want to take on seriously. And, to Chris's point with like the security and stuff is, that's the cool thing about running a business, whether it's MSP or it's just a lot of education and learning and making decisions. And that's it.
No, I got you. Chris runs a program at GTIA called the Cybersecurity Trust Mark, and I guess if I'm an MSP and I put that logo on my website, it's, hey, I've done a lot of work to, to have a third party say that I'm doing the right things, right? And like
Yeah.
that's the type of marketing that I hope builds trust since we're talking about that theme. You know, I'm going to flip to your website, Matt, which is tacticsmarketing.com. I see you have HubSpot on there. To me, I feel like that's the go-to in the industry because the PSA, I know, personal opinion, you can disagree with me. Sucks as a CRM. It does not do good for marketing. I don't know why everybody thought it would, but it's great for everything else. But when it comes to marketing, bad. Why? I don't know. Maybe they people who built PSAs didn't think about it that way. If do you agree with that? Maybe that's a biased question since you have HubSpot as your logo here. But do you find MSPs being successful? You know, adding something like a HubSpot, somehow connecting it, or maybe running it separate in parallel to their PSA? Like, why?
Okay. So and HubSpot would be called like a CRM, right? And yeah, I mean, in general, PSAs make crappy CRMs because they're ticketing systems. They're not CRM systems, but right, they're often free. It's included, and if that's where you're at in your journey and you're really just trying to, get your QBRs scheduled and do a few upsells, probably could do it in your PSA. But when you get a little more serious about your marketing journey, marketing is very tech heavy. And that's what's fun about it. Like I get to nerd out a little bit on marketing. We do some crazy things. When I have my clients' HubSpots configured, they know who visited and when, and their emails getting sent automatically, and a LinkedIn, and there's a lot of technology that goes into the back end of this, especially when you get into automation. So, is HubSpot better than Salesforce for these or that? It's positioned nicely for the market, right? It's a good small mid-market tool. It has a pretty good feature set. Obviously, we're very versed in it. If you have something else that gets the same results done, that's fine too. But you do need a tech stack or a platform if you're going to get serious about marketing. And I can tell you your PSA is not that platform. So, yeah.
I don't think you're getting a lot of pushback on that. I would say in the space, Chris, you talk to a lot of people. I hear HubSpot, I hear Infusionsoft, which rebranded as Keep, I believe, and I
Mhm.
hear what's like the freebie third one that everybody seems, the smaller guys seem to um,
Well, even HubSpot, if you're really small, you can start with a free version of HubSpot.
this
Think
is true.
I think what's interesting about what Matt was articulating and the differences between, whether a PSA can do it well or not. In many cases, I think, at least what I've seen, especially in the MSP space, regardless of how well the PSA could do it or shifting to a true pure play marketing tool, they need somebody to navigate marketing on their behalf and at
Hmm.
least teach them a lot of the pieces. Like I would argue that most MSPs probably can't tell you the difference between lead generation and the sales funnel. Like why those have different values and why just because someone came out of one funnel doesn't mean they're not good for a different funnel that keeps that, communication going. I think if MSPs could grasp that marketing isn't even necessarily about getting new clients. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's like nobody knows who we are. We've got some good clients, but outside of that little pool, nobody knows who we are. So if we want to be exposed, maybe in this case, it would be like, oh, well, we could put up a billboard, might solve for that problem. Funny taglines, or maybe they have the budget to do a 30-second Super Bowl commercial. Because I'd argue the ones that spend the money on a Super Bowl commercial probably aren't really hurting from a financial standpoint of how many cases of beer did they sell in
I don't
2025,
know.
right?
Did you
Like
see the Super Bowl commercial, or just a QR code that floated on the screen? Like I was,
that on the
I would,
size.
I'm pretty sure people in your boat said don't scan the QR code, and they had nothing else.
Right. Well, I mean, you saw the, I mean, I picked on Budweiser, but like every year they have done some pretty interesting commercials that are by no stretch of the imagination done without some serious money being put into it. Not just the time they paid for the ad placement, but the actual advertisement itself. And so the interesting thing, and I would say what they pulled off without having to sell more beer, and I'm sure that happened too. I'm talking about it right now because I was impressed with the commercial.
Well, I would say, since we're, not to get political by any means, but I would think in the classrooms of most universities that have marketing tracks where how do you kill your market value as Budweiser? I think they've been working their way back from that over the last couple of years. No,
Could
I
be.
mean, you don't have to, don't take my word for it. Go look at the stock chart, rewind back a couple of years. Like it's a thing, but I digress. Marketing is important. So, Matt, I assume you're not going to advise anybody you're working with to go buy Super Bowl commercials. I don't know about billboards or radio ads because I listen to sports radio a lot, and sometimes I hear MSPs in the Philly area on my ads when I listen to sports radio. So, what are the? I'm not trying to don't nothing proprietary here, right? But if you were to say, "Hey, Matt, I'm going to take your 11%. I'm $1 million MSP. That's 100 grand. What am I doing with that 100 grand in that 12-month period? What's your go-to?"
Well, obviously, to your sports radio, it's a case by case basis. So you're going to have to just set aside some time, even if without the money, to get to an operational maturity where you know what your target audience is. You know the difference between branding, marketing, and advertising. Some of these things, right? And we have like a big checklist. We just kind of help people. I do this with all businesses, even my other businesses outside. At some point you just have to say, when is a business ready for which types of marketing and when does it need to hold, and keep working on its productization and different things like that. To get more specific though, since MSP is what we call, it's a B2B sale normally, right? Business to business. And it's what we call a high value lawn contemplation cycle, right? Meaning like that people don't just go, oh, I need a new MSP, and they get one from vending machine, right? And it's very relationship based, or can be, right? So you basically kind of have to start building this whole case. And what I stay awake at night and still do is what makes X person change MSPs, you know?
Hmm. That's
So,
that's a really, I mean, that's a loaded question. I'll throw out some quick ones. Bad interaction somewhere along the line, right? Like they felt like they weren't being taken care of in the moment, right? I'll throw a couple of other ones out there. They feel like they're not getting back too fast enough, right? Like it's just a kind of delayed response. And or three, and I don't know if you want to add to these, Chris. My third one is I just never hear from them. I signed up, things work, out of sight, out of mind, and I don't even know if they're doing anything.
That was actually what I was going to add if you didn't, was the out of sight, out of mind. And I think it's a self-inflicting wound. Most clients that would be leaving for that reason, it's not tied to, in many cases, the lack of trying to get something out of their MSP.
So those are good ones. I'll cheat a little because we pay to have these studies done. We do focus groups, right? This is the question that I built my whole agency on. So it's true. Sometimes it's about service delivery. Sometimes it's about price. Sometimes it's about fear of missed opportunity of advanced technologies not being enabled in their businesses. Sometimes, and it goes on. There's little slivers of opportunity in there in each industry, in each vertical, in each geography, to capitalize, and plant seeds and help move people. And we don't need to move 1,000 people, we need to move 10 people, and
I
so
I,
basically,
I feel for whatever it's worth, right? Like today, I can't help but say like AI is that today, right? Hey, so and so said they can put AI and do this and do that, and all of a sudden it's going to revolutionize my business. But my IT guy isn't talking to me about that. Some third party consultant is, and I'm going to go this way because there might be more upside. I mean, I feel like we're selling two different things. I don't know, but or a little bit of snake oil sometimes, right? Like it's too good to be true. Is it actually going to deliver there? I don't know, but if I were to put the most recent example and match it up, it feels like that's it.
yeah, it's a popular subject for sure. And kind of come back to your MSP, your $1 million MSP, what should you do? Although that's a loaded question because there's so many things. We all have the same tools, whether it's sports radio
Sure.
or billboard or SEO or AI, AI listings in that case, or Google local, whatever it might be, pay per click, LinkedIn, social,
Sure.
Um, it's kind of working backwards. So you've got to think, who's the person I need to move, right?
Mhm.
And the wrong way, and you can tell people like with a really low marketing maturity or agencies that don't understand MSPs go, oh, we'll wait till they're really mad with their MSP and then they'll call us. Like if you're waiting and you're not controlling that pipeline in the buyer's journey, like
Yep.
what's your whole, you're going to be selling your business and saying, I think it's going to grow as long as 10 people get pissed off at their MSPs this month, we'll have 10 new leads. No, you've got to be able to move people that have, it's not even on their radar. They're going to work at their doctor's office, as the office manager or whatever. And you're able to say, I want that person to be, using my MSP in 6 months. What's our plan? And then you work your strategy backwards from there.
Okay.
Does
And
that
it's
go to
going
a
to have all the,
maturity challenge? Like a so thinking about that, like a maturity challenge. So I think like you hear this a lot. Like the MSP that's talking too much is always trying to sell me something, right? And I think that the language is that the client side is getting smarter. To your point about the desire for taking advantage of technologies, whether they saw them in commercials or read about them in the new, those cycles. But I also see that there's a disconnect in some cases, or maybe even a lot of cases, where the value to price is not maturing over time. So, if I come to you and I have a solution for you and it's going to, on my end as the MSP, I know that this is a reduction in cost or friction by getting you on this stack. And I use that as an advantage to, raise my rates, fine. But at some point, somebody else is going to also recognize that growth model and they're going to go, wait a second, we can do this for a whole lot less, raise our dollar, but not raise it as high as some of the other players in our space. I've seen enough of those to happen. You're like, how are they doing it for that price? But when you dig under the hood, you're like, oh, buying all from one vendor. They've got the volume game down. They're able to basically compete on price and value at the same time.
yeah. And, to that effect, I could just do one thing at our agency, which the industry does so poorly, and that's just productization of services, right? And making sure that your services provide value. When I had my MSP, and think this is 10 years ago, we were like pure play, almost pure play Haas, as well as all of our stuff came branded with our brand, and it was all uniform, right? So basically everything was a system. We had server racks sent from China that were branded, and built
Yeah.
for us. And you had our system and it had a brand name and everything. It's like you could walk into that server, oh, you're using the system, that's great. And you're on it. And if you stop paying, everything goes away. What does that mean? I mean, it just means all my IT stops working. Right? It's super sticky as well as super easy to sell because you could buy it online, and check out
Yeah.
yourself, clear pricing. And yeah. So if you're gonna make this a whole, treat this like a big, your friend has to recommend you, and I'm gonna have 8 assessments and all these appointments and then never show up, like to George's point, for 6 months.
Yeah.
No.
Gotcha. So if I could, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put a statement out there. Agree, disagree. You're more successful as an MSP in 2026 if you're good at marketing, but just okay at service delivery.
100% agree.
Okay. I hope everybody, I'm going to clip that. Okay. So good at
That's
marketing,
fine.
just okay at service. I'm not saying great. I'm just saying okay. Take that away, guys.
Yeah.
Matt, I got a few more minutes with you, but I just want to pick your brain. And probably should have asked this question earlier, but I'm going to ask it now. If you were to give advice to an MSP, like when should you sell your business? I know that that's very one-on-one, case by case, like everything else. But since you've done it, when's that time, or when should you start thinking about it?
The day that driving in becomes so painful that you would rather be doing anything else, and you're able to, right? I
That's
mean,
fair.
we've all had painful days, but you don't have that out. If you've got the out, take it.
Okay. I've heard a lot of people, I'm sure you have too, Chris, where they were running a side thing alongside their MSP, like real estate or day trading or something else, crypto, right? And like they used the revenues from their IT services business to do something else, and it ended up becoming like their bank account, like how they funded the second thing or the third thing, right?
Yeah.
I wish more people thought of that. I think there's some pretty good success stories out there. I'm sure there's bad stories too, but I've heard some pretty successful people who are like, "Hey, I started my MSP and I took $1,000 a month and I put it into this, and it wasn't a lot of money, but you know what? After 10 years, I could sell the MSP, and this other thing was so good that I didn't have to think about it, right?" So,
Yeah. And so it's an energy thing, right? And so basically, you know, I'm going to the office. I've got, multiple offers to buy this office, and I'm like, no, I just don't have the energy or the desire to do that. So take one of the offers. And I pencil backwards. Like I've done way better with my money after the sale than if I would have stuck in it. Not
Yeah.
because the MSP done that, but because I wouldn't have. I was checking out,
I,
and so it's just
definitely the
like you
mindset's
kind of
different.
you
Yeah.
you yeah, there's a natural arc to a business, and you just need to get out when you've taken it to its potential for you personally, and let someone else run with it, um
That's
and
fair.
That's almost identical to my exit. I exited a little bit before you did, Matt. And when I realized I was bankrolling payroll against my 401k, and but it was my that was my collateral. I was like, is this really what I want to do going forward? And every single person that was in my MSP today is doing way more than they were when we were together as an MSP. And not that we wouldn't necessarily have stayed or continued to grow as an MSP, but to your point, our heart wasn't in it after 9 years of running it.
Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
fair. It's almost like I know I'll leave it on this because we're like right now is the NFL Combine. I know I'm a sports guy. I'm gonna put it out there. So like when you're thinking about trading a player on your team, like and you're like, are they at their highest value right now? If I can move them, like if I can get the most for moving them today versus waiting a year or two, like that's part of the calculation of whether you
Right.
move on from somebody or not, right? So to Matt's point, right? Like if you think you've taken it to the highest you can take it, and if there's value there and you can, I think you should think about it and entertain the idea. Why not? It's
And it goes
business.
yeah, that goes back to your, oh my gosh, Matt's saying that marketing is more important than service delivery. I mean, it's a business. At some point, you gotta love the game, right? And this can't be part of your personality. You gotta exit when it's good
Yeah.
to exit. You gotta market when you gotta sell, you gotta grow. Like, you gotta be in it to win it, not in it because you want to fix people's computers. That's like E-Myth 101, right?
Yeah.
There's my second clip from this show. So I'm gonna
That's a
write that
great
down.
plug.
Matt, for people who will find you on LinkedIn or all the socials, and they listen to the audio version of this, I'm just gonna spell your last name out. Middle, Middle, Stetter, Stetter, right? I said that right?
Yeah.
Cool. So Matt Middlestetter, you'll find him online. His website, tacticsmarketing.com. Check it out. I've actually been poking around through this session, and there's a lot there, right? I mean, but as an MSP, you're a business like anything else. I think the important takeaways from this are guy who's been there, done that. Two, because he has that background knowledge, a little bit more tactical, hence, the marketing approach. I love that. That's how you get the tactical marketing. No pun intended. Matt's not sending me a check, by the way. And three, work backwards. Know when to get out, right? Start entertaining that conversation so that you can figure out what is your timeline and how much money do you spend in that timeline, right? If you can
Yeah.
get to those answers, the rest of this becomes a lot more deliberate. If you're just doing it for fun, then maybe don't market at all. I don't know. Chris, thanks for jumping on. I know you did it haphazardly, but I'm looking forward to seeing you, buddy. Matt, this was great. Hope I run into you, not on a snowboard though, because I'll break something. So I'm sure I'll find a way to get in person there. For everyone else, thanks for listening. We recorded this session. You'll find it at MSP Initiative.com. Thanks for jumping on, Matt.
Thanks, Charles. See ya.